Okay, so from this point onwards, we'll finish respiration and let's see. Okay, let's see. All right, let's start respiration. Okay, so I'm going to be uploading these recordings as separate segments. Okay, right. Let's see, small series of videos, so you can watch them separately for the people who cannot join live. Right, respiration in a Taggala. Right, let's quickly finish this. Yes, recording will be sent. But keep, I mean, keep on the live stream, which is more interactive. Okay, right. Okay, respiration. What is the definition? It's a biological process. Gas exchange can be observed externally, right? Meanwhile, so most of the organisms have gas exchange, right? If you take a cnidarian, annelid, or a mollusk, everyone has gas exchange because why? They need oxygen to do what? Aerobic respiration or cellular respiration. But you can't see that because most of these animals, their respiration is happening through their body surface, and I mean most commonly through their body surface. So because of that, you can't see them breathe, right? You can't see them breathe. But uh, in sort of your mammals and your sort of reptiles, not unlikely, but only mainly in mammals and birds, you can see their respiration from the outside. Externally, you can see, right? So it occurs in three stages. Okay, actually, gas exchange between the external environment and the lungs, gas exchange in the alveoli, and cellular respiration. When you come to A levels, we call these this external environment and the lungs and alveoli. We call this internal respiration. I'm sorry, we call it external respiration. We call it external respiration, and whatever the respiration or the gas exchange happening in the cells, we call it internal respiration. Okay, external and internal. You don't need that. Just remember, it has three stages as gas exchange between external environment and the lungs, then the alveoli, and the cellular level gas exchange. Okay. Intake of oxygen into the lungs and removal of gaseous waste in cells occurs in the external gas exchange. Okay. So let's see. This is the sort of activities you have done these, no? Right. Blah blah may own that. Right. This system involved in, I mean, taking oxygen into the lungs and release of gaseous waste products produced during biological process is the respiratory system. Okay, I will show you parts of the respiratory system, then we'll fill in the blanks. Okay. So your respiratory system, I think I told you, I mean, I showed you some of the upper respiratory system we use, right? When we are talking about the digestive system, but I'll show you again. So we have to start with our upper respiratory system, which is your nasal cavity, right? If you take the nasal cavity, I'll remove this skin, okay, because you don't need it. If you take the nasal cavity, so these are the nostrils. You can see, Medina, there are two nostrils, right? There are two nostrils, I think, right? And if you take a cross section inside, you can see there are so many complex things inside the nose. So many complex things inside the nose. These things, or let's say these structures inside the nose, help in sort of different functions of the respiratory system. Particularly, the air that you are breathing in have to be modified slightly. The air that you are breathing have to be modified. Imagine the air you are breathing contains dust and other sort of viruses, bacteria, so many other things. And also that air that you are breathing can be colder than your body temperature. So before that air reaches your lungs, that air has to be warmed into the body temperature. It has to be warmed up, and also it has to be humidified. Otherwise, rest of your respiratory system can be dried by dry air that you are breathing. So the respiratory system can become dry. If the respiratory system becomes dry, you see that this sort of there are cilia and mucus in the respiratory system. That mucus can become hard. If the mucus becomes hard, that's going to be a problem when you are trying to clean the respiratory system. So the air that you are breathing in has to be humidified and warmed up. So in order to do that, you have inside your nasal cavity, you have this complicated structures that are going to come into contact with your gases that you are breathing, and that is going to warm up and humidify the air. So from the nose, you are going to go into your common part of the respiratory system and the digestive system. Can you see? This is the tube coming from the nose, and this is the pharynx. Okay. From the pharynx, you start your respiratory system that is going in front of your esophagus. So your respiratory tube is going in front of your esophagus, which is called the trachea. Can you see the trachea is supported by several rings of cartilage that are going to provide support. Then we come down to the lungs itself, right? Then we come down to the lungs. Take a good look at the lungs. I'm going to rotate it around, right? I'm going to rotate them around. Take a good look at the lungs. What can you see about the left and the right lungs? What can you say about the left and the right lungs? Which lung is visibly bigger? Which lung is big? Your right lung is big because why? Can you see? So this is the right lung. Huh? This side is the right lung. Mame blue color patches. This is the right lung. Okay, and this is the left lung. Okay, why is the left lung small? Because in here in this space you have the heart, right? You have to have the heart. So the heart is more to the left side. Therefore, the left lung has some spaces missing. I mean, it's smaller to accommodate the heart. Okay, it is smaller to accommodate the heart. Therefore, we say the left lung has only two lobes. There's a line that is dividing the left lung into two parts, two lobes, and there's one, two, three lobes in the right lung. Okay, then so our main windpipe or the trachea comes down like this, and it is going to divide into left and right bronchi. So this is the right bronchus, the left bronchus you can't see. Then inside the lung, you can see they are going to divide into smaller and smaller bronchioles like that. Finally, they are going to end up at your respiratory surface. Anyone can tell me what is the respiratory surface of human? Please, what is the respiratory surface? Taggalakian? Respiratory surface? No. Where is the surface? Where? Yes. Where is the exact place where gas exchange take place is this. So you can see over theater, the tube system of the respiratory system will become branch, and finally will end up at these sort of like a bunch of grapes. No, these are called your air sacs or your alveoli. Right? Can you see some of the features of the alveoli? They have a very thin wall. Their wall is only one cell layer thick. Imagine one cell layer thick. You can't even see one cell, right? So imagine the thickness of one cell layer, very very thin wall. And also you can see they are surrounded by so many blood vessels. No, they are highly vascularized. There's a very good blood supply to the alveoli, right? And also you will see that I'll give you another even closer view of one alveoli. This is one alveoli. Can you see this sort of blue color? There's a fluid layer. So there's a fluid layer on the inner lining of the alveoli that is going to help in the absorption of oxygen. You can see there's one capillary coming like this, and there's the blood capillary that is going out. Sorry, this is the one coming in. Nah? Okay, blue color is bringing oxygen, deoxygenated blood. Blue color blood vessel is bringing deoxygenated blood, and in the alveoli, it's going to take oxygen and become nice and red colored. It's going to become nice and red colored, and it's going to go out. Okay, so blue color blood vessel, it's actually a branch of a vein that is bringing deoxygenated blood, and red color blood is going out the other side. Okay, so this is a single alveolus. Always remember, the wall of the alveoli is the respiratory surface. In the human, wall of the alveoli is the respiratory surface. Okay. Right. So we basically went through the entire structure of the respiratory system, right? Um, I couldn't show you the sternum bone, right? The sternum bone and the ribs I couldn't show you. Okay, right. I'll show them different, I mean, once more, right? So pharynx we saw, that is the common pathway, and from the pharynx it will go into the upper part of the respiratory system, that is called the larynx. From the larynx you have the main windpipe, that is the trachea. Trachea divides into bronchus, left and right bronchus. They will divide into bronchioles, and finally they will end up in alveoli. And there's a muscular sort of sheet of muscle. It's like a sheet of muscle that is, I told you, separating the abdomen from the thorax, right? Okay. So, main parts of the respiratory system are the nasal cavity, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, bronchioles, and alveoli. Internal surface of the nasal cavity is covered with what? Kianaba? Yes, nahay මොනවද තියෙන්නේ හොටු, right? nahay තියෙන්නේ හොටු, mucus. Due to the presence of mucus in the nasal cavity, it is moist. The nasal cavity lining is moist. There are numerous what? Cilia. Cilia present on the lining of the nasal cavity. Bacteria, dust, and other waste found in the inhaled air stick to the mucus. This prevents the entry of them into the lungs. By rhythmic movement of the cilia, the waste materials are sent out. The waste materials that are collected in the pharynx are removed out with saliva. Right? So your respiratory epithelium is very nice. Okay, I think I put a diagram. Okay, no need to draw. I think I put a diagram somewhere. Ah, yes, maybe look what this is how your nasal cavity and also upper parts of the respiratory system looks like. If you take a slice, can you see these? What are these? Cilia. And you can't see very clearly, but there's a layer of mucus that is in between the cilia. Yellow color mucus. What's going to happen is these cilia are able to move like this, so, right? Like wave like motions. So what they are going to do is they are going to move this mucus upwards, right? They are going to move this mucus upwards. So imagine you have some bacteria here. So the mucus, so the cilia is going to move the mucus upwards into your pharynx, and in the pharynx, they are going to, you are going to swallow it. But okay, the bacteria and viruses that you sort of inhale are going to go into your, if you swallow, කැහැලා එළියට දානවා ගොඩක් අය ඉන්නවනේ, but if you swallow, they are going to go into your stomach, right? අපි එහෙම කළා you sort of I know, I mean, what do you call that? You sort of clear your nose, right? So when you are doing that, the things that are the mucus that is in your nasal cavity is going to come into your pharynx. So it can come into your mouth, or you can swallow it, right? Right. So that is the cilia on the respiratory tract. The materials that are collected at the pharynx are removed with saliva. The changes that takes place when inhaled air passes through the nasal cavity are as follows. Right, I told you, moisturizing action happening and humidifying. Humidifying means what? You are adding water. Warming up of inhaled air up to body temperature. I told you this also. Removal of foreign matter. Yes, you have viruses, you have bacteria, you have other sort of dust and other particulate matter, fur, right? So many things are there. If you take your the air that you are breathing in, okay. So that filtration happens in the upper respiratory cavity or in the nasal cavity. Lungs are present in the thoracic cavity. So now we are talking about the lungs. Thoracic cavity is protected by what? Kanban? Thoracic cavity is protected by what? The ribs. Anybody know how many ribs we have? අපිට ribs කීයක් තියෙනවද? You will learn about all about ribs in your A levels, right? අපිට ribs කීයක් තියෙනවද? You have 12 on one side, you have 24 ribs, right? You have 24 ribs. Okay. Okay. Intercostal muscles are present within the ribs, right? Intercostal muscles. You usually call your ribs as costal, or something related to the ribs as called as costal related, costal region. Okay. So the muscles that are present in between the ribs are called intercostal muscles. The lower limit of the thoracic cavity is the diaphragm. Okay. I'm going to show you how you breathe and breathe out. This please remember this process. How you are inspirating and how you are expirating. Very, very important. Okay. How you are breathing in, the mechanics of breathing. Okay. How you are breathing. As a human, how are you taking oxygen into your lungs and how are you removing gas from outside? Gas to the outside. Okay. It's like this. So this is your thoracic cavity, no? Right? This is your thoracic cavity. Can anyone tell me what this bone is? A bone name. Just for fun. What is that bone? I have a real bone of that right now, right? I usually, right? I have forgotten to remove that. I had a full skeleton with me for my the people, the students who are facing A level this year. We have a full lesson structure and support and movement, right? So this is a humerus. It's a upper arm bone. This one, exactly. Okay, it's a real one. Okay, so okay, so I don't have any ribs with me right now, but wanted to show you this. You can see if you take any bone, you have a surface for to connect with other bones. So this is called a ball and socket joint, right? Here in your shoulder, right? And this end is going to form the elbow joint. Okay, just for your interest, right? But we were talking about your ribs and intercostal muscles, right? So where are your ribs? Here, right? These are your ribs, right? You can see there are 12 pairs of ribs. This is called the sternum bone. අපි කියන්නේ අර මේ chest bone එක කියලා front bone, that is the sternum, right? Then where are the intercostal muscles? These are the intercostal muscles, the muscles that are located in between ribs. These are intercostal muscles. Okay. Then you can see this is the diaphragm. Okay, this is the diaphragm. So when you are breathing in, what's going to happen is you can see this keratin is breathing, right? And look from the side. You can see the thoracic cavity is expanding. No, because of the contraction of the intercostal muscles. What's going to happen is your thoracic cage is going to get bigger, like the volume increases. And pay careful attention to what is happening to the diaphragm. So the diaphragm is becoming flat, and now it is becoming curved again, right? So the diaphragm is becoming flat. That means what? The volume of the thoracic cavity is being increased by who? The diaphragm and intercostal muscles together. So when the volume of the thoracic cavity is getting increased, that means what? Who are inside the thoracic cavity? What are the structures you can find inside the thoracic cavity? The lungs. So when the thoracic cavity volume increases, the lung volume also increase. Therefore, when the volume increase, the pressure decreases, air is going to be sucked into your lungs. The opposite happens when you want to breathe out. The intercostal muscles are going to relax. So the ribs become small. I mean, ribs become downwards, come down, and the diaphragm becomes more curved. The diaphragm becomes more curved. When the diaphragm becomes more curved, the volume decreases, so the pressure increases, so the air is pushed out. Okay. Got it? During inspiration, air enters into the lungs. Okay. During inspiration, air enters into the lungs. For that, the volume of the lungs should what? For that, the volume of the lungs should, what should happen? Volume of the lungs should increase. Should increase. Okay. To increase of the volume of the lungs, to increase the volume of the lungs, sorry, the volume of the thoracic cavity should be increased. To increase the volume of the lungs, the volume of the thoracic cavity should increase. Okay? So this occurs due to the following change. What are the two changes? Intercostal muscles contract. Your intercostal muscles are going to contract. Therefore, the ribs move up and the sternum moves forward. Ribs move up and the sternum moves forward. Okay. Therefore, this increases the volume of the thoracic cavity. At the same time, the diaphragm contracts. The diaphragm contracts. The diaphragm contracts and reduces curvature. Due to the above activities, the volume of the thoracic cavity increases, and with that, the volume of the lungs increase. So, the air enters the lungs through the nose. Always we should try to breathe through the nose, because why? In our nose, so many beneficial things are happening. No, monada, humidified, warmed up, filtered. All those things are only happening in your nose, not in your mouth. So, cutting husma ganne ka navatta. Okay, try to reduce breathing with your mouth. Okay, inspiration. So the opposite things happen. Things are going to happen in the opposite way. Volume should decrease. So this due to due to the following changes, what's going to happen? The thoracic cavity volume should decrease, right? Thoracic cavity volume decreases. So the sternum moves into its original position. The diaphragm relaxes. The diaphragm relaxes. And what's going to happen when it's relaxed? When the diaphragm is relaxed, its curvature is increased. When the diaphragm is relaxed, it's more curved. When the diaphragm is contracted, it's flat. When the diaphragm is contracted, it's flat. When the diaphragm is relaxed, its curvature increases. Okay. All right. Due to these activities, the volume of the lungs decrease, thereby gas inside the lungs move out through the trachea and then into the nasal cavity. Right? So inhaled air finally reach the alveoli through the nasal cavity. Right? So it is a respiratory epithelium. Right. Finally reach the alveoli through the nasal cavity, trachea, bronchi, and the bronchioles. The oxygen concentration is alveoli in the alveoli is what is greater than that of the blood capillary network around it. Therefore, what's going to happen? What do you mean by diffusion? Diffusion means if you have a higher concentration of something on one side, if you have a higher concentration of something on one side and a lower concentration of something on another side, right? There's going to be what we call as a random movement from the higher concentration to the lower concentration. There's going to be movement from the higher concentration to the lower concentration. So what's the same thing is going to happen to oxygen. So inside the alveolus, you have more oxygen. In the blood capillaries, oxygen concentration is low. So from the oxygen from the air to the blood, it's going to diffuse. Therefore, oxygen diffuses. We have a keyword. Oxygen diffuses out of the alveoli into the capillaries. On the other way, CO2 is higher in the capillaries, greater than in the air inside the alveoli. So, CO2 is going to come into the air in the alveoli from the blood. Okay. Gas exchange takes place in alveoli. මේක හොඳට මතක තියාගන්න. Gas exchange takes place in the alveoli, right? So, therefore, it is known as our respiratory surface. So, always remember alveoli is your respiratory surface. Accordingly, the respiratory surface of human is the wall of alveoli. මේක ලියද්දි හොඳට careful වෙන්න. Right? Your respiratory surface is the wall of the alveoli. And also, the exchange of gases takes place by what? Diffusion. Diffusion. Diffusion, is it requiring energy? Do you need to give energy for diffusion? In order to do diffusion, do you need to give energy? No. It's a passive process. It's a passive process. There is no need to give energy to do diffusion. It occurs due to what? Concentration difference. It occurs due to the concentration difference. Okay, right. Then adaptations of the respiratory surface for efficient gas exchange. Right? I told you when I showed you the alveoli inside of the alveolus, there are so many specialities of the alveolus for the efficient gas exchange. Right? The surface should be moistened and permeable. Right? I told you. So gases exchange nicely when there is a liquid for them to dissolve. Gases exchange nicely when there is a liquid for them to dissolve. So the surface should be moist. Can you remember I showed you there's a fluid layer, moist and permeable. That means it should be easy for gases to go across. Then also thin. Say if the respiratory surface is several centimeters thick, then it's going to be a problem. The gases cannot travel nicely. Then you have to have a large surface area. Google the lungs of a horse if you want to see how big, right? If you want to see how large the surface area of the respiratory surface is, if you Google the lungs of a horse, they are massive. That's because a horse is able to sort of do very sort of energy demanding, right? Run for a long period of time. So because they have a very high metabolic demand, they need a large respiratory surface. So the surface should have a large surface area to exchange a large volume of gas. To exchange a large volume of gas. And finally, should be highly vascularized. I showed you, right? Remember, large number of blood vessels around the capillary, sorry, the alveoli, a large network of capillaries, right? So that is because in order to maintain what we call as a diffusion gradient. So body cover act as respiratory surface and gas exchange through the body cover, right? Respiratory surface of human is the wall of alveoli. So I told you, if you take these sort of annelids and sometimes mollusks and amphibians, gembo, their body surface can act as their gas exchange surface. Okay, but if you take us, it's only our alveolar or the wall of alveoli. So our alveoli has most of these features that we just mentioned here. The methanol, these are what the efficient gas exchange surface should have these, right? And our alveoli has them. Our alveoli has them. That's why it's a very good efficient gas exchange surface. It has a thin wall, then it has a moist surface. Okay, it has a moist surface. It has a good blood capillary network. Then they have a large number of alveoli. Right, all those are features that you can see in our gas exchange surface. Okay, all those are features that you can see in our gas exchange surface. Right. Then cellular respiration. So we have completed whatever the things that are happening in the lungs. So the lungs have taken in gas and they have gone through the alveolar wall. Now the blood has oxygen. So that oxygen will be carried to the cells where you have cellular respiration happening. Right. So what is the process of, right? So how are you producing energy? So you can see there's a glucose here and there's energy coming out. So from this glucose, how are you getting energy? From this glucose, how are you getting energy? You are going to do a chemical reaction that includes oxidation. You are going to oxidize this glucose. Huh? Very important, remember. You are going to oxidize. What do you mean by oxidization? Anybody know what do you mean by oxidization? What do you mean by oxidization? Yes. So you don't actually need, it means you are releasing electrons. You are releasing electrons. That electrons will be used to produce energy. So this is the summary of cellular respiration. Glucose will react with, this is what? This is aerobic respiration. No? Pay careful attention because there is oxygen. This is aerobic respiration. At the end of the day, you are going to get CO2, water, and energy. Right? When you balance this, it's C6H12O6 combining with oxygen to produce how many? You are going to get carbon dioxide, water plus energy. You know how to balance chemical equations, right? Nepathe, there is 6 carbon, so you need 6 carbons here, right? Then you have 12 and so what are you going to do? You are going to put 6 oxygens here, so 12 plus 6 here, you are going to get 18 here, so you put a 6 again. Okay, this is how you balance. Any questions? Okay, any questions? No. Okay. All right. Okay. Moving on to the sort of the final part of gas exchange, aerobic respiration versus anaerobic respiration. We discussed the respiration, okay, that takes place in the cells in the presence of oxygen. So, if there is a respiration that is taking place in the presence of oxygen, that is called aerobic. These are simple things. No? Some organisms can respire, yes, without oxygen, right? Without oxygen. Respiration carried out by organisms without oxygen is known as anaerobic respiration. Anaerobic respiration takes place in plants and yeast. Okay, plants and yeast can is known as alcohol fermentation, or it's actually what you are producing here is ethyl alcohol. All right, here you are producing ethyl alcohol. Mainly your yeast, right? Do you know how you produce alcohol industry? Become the alcohol produced in industry. You take a certain sugar, right? A sugar usually that is going to be broken down into glucose, right? This glucose, when you add yeast, it is going to do anaerobic respiration and going to produce ethanol. So this you there here you have carbon dioxide. You are going to get ethyl alcohol. Okay. So yeast is used to produce. So Lanka arak hadanne kohonda. What is the process that you use to make arak in Sri Lanka? We usually use sugar cane and also coconut toddy. Coconut tree එකේ phloem sap එක, right? In the coconut tree, the phloem juice that you get in the coconut tree, we use to produce arak. Okay, so when you add yeast to it and allow to do this anaerobic respiration, you are going to get ethyl alcohol. Then we do something called distillation to get a nice fully concentrated ethyl alcohol, okay, that you can drink. Okay, when yeast carries out anaerobic respiration, CO2 and what else do you get? CO2 and ethyl alcohol is the output. Okay, this process is an example for alcohol fermentation. Animals, including human cells, perform a certain type of anaerobic respiration. It is called lactic acid. Right? Lactic acid fermentation. Okay? Right? Lactic acid fermentation. What are the products? You have lactic acid. Lactic acid, because it's an acid, it can cause a certain pain. Right? If you ran a 100-meter race, right, because of the lactic acid accumulated in your muscles, you can get a muscle pain. So what is the best cure? You can breathe in and out very fast. So when you give oxygen, this lactic acid will be removed, right? When you give oxygen, this lactic acid will be removed. So this then the pain will go away. When you remove the lactic acid, the pain will go away. Okay. Energy produced using aerobic respiration is greater, or you can say more than energy produced during anaerobic respiration. This is because of the incomplete breakdown of glucose in anaerobic respiration and the complete breakdown of glucose in aerobic respiration. Energy is produced during anaerobic respiration as well as, okay, part of this energy is used. Functions of ATP is very important. This is very nice, important, right? Act as an energy carrier. ATP is like money. Yeah? It's like energy money. So energy, so what is the use of money that you have? You can take it anywhere and you can accept it as to exchange or to get something done. You can use money to do something, right? You can pay money to do many things. You can pay someone to carry something. You can pay someone to teach something, right? You can pay someone to repair something. You can pay someone to make something. So those are the things the cell also uses ATP to do. ATP used as a sort of form of energy money, energy currency. Okay. So movement of muscles, transport, chemical reaction, synthesis of complex. These are extra knowledge. Right. So for the final part today, I'm going to discuss diseases associated with the respiratory system, and we can finish. Okay. So we covered excretion today as well, right? Okay. Right. Diseases associated with the respiratory system. Can anyone tell me why are there so many diseases associated with the respiratory system? Why are there so many diseases? Because the respiratory system always comes into contact with the external environment, no? Because it has no other option. No? You have to take in external air into your body if you want to take, if you want to have oxygen, right? You have to take external gases into your body, otherwise you can't keep on living, right? So that's why so many external things can come into your respiratory system and cause disease. So common cold, I'm also having a common cold these days, right? um, Causative agent is a virus. Okay. So from hospital, I usually get, right, at least once a month, I usually get a viral infection or something from the clinics and the hospital. I usually get. Okay. So usually common colds are virus. Do you have any medication for viral diseases? Yes, we do. Right? We have medicines for viral diseases, but we don't usually use them unless it is a very, very bad infection. Something like herpes, right? Chicken pox, influenza, those sort of serious viral infections. Only we use antivirals, drugs that can fight viruses, right? But for something like a common cold, we don't give virus, right? It's of a wrong statement. There is no medical treatment as it is a viral treatment, viral infection. No, there are so many drugs for viral infections, but we only use them for serious viral infections, right? But for many of the serious viral infections, we don't have drugs. Dengue, we don't have drugs. Zika virus, monkeypox, all those kind of things, we don't have antiviral drugs. But for influenza, AIDS, um, herpes viruses, most of those kind of viruses we have antiviral drugs. Okay. What are the symptoms of common cold? On hitala kiyana pula headache, sneezing, runny nose, cough, right? You can avoid dust and mist like conditions, right? But most probably you get a common cold from another person, right? You get a common cold from another person. Okay. If you go to a crowded place, you can get a common cold, right? Pneumonia. Okay. Pneumonia is a lung infection. Okay, pneumonia is a lung infection that can be caused by a virus or a bacteria. Lungs are infected and fluid may accumulate in the lungs. Prolonged cold and cough, right? If you have a long lasting cold or a cough, it can result in pneumonia because why? That virus can go down to your respiratory system and cause a lung infection, right? Pneumonia can be a serious condition that can sometimes result in death. Asthma. Asthma is actually just is an inflammation. Inflammation ke liye kya मतलब it's an allergic reaction. It's an immune reaction. What are the common causes? Dust, pollen, sawdust, fur, smoke. Hands up anyone who's having allergies to asthma, right? Asthma is a kind of allergy. For example, I have an allergy. I can get asthma when there is dusty clothes. Almari mask karnකොට I get a sort of asthma attack, right? Because what's going to happen is it's like this. So if you take a cross section of your bronchi, they should be nice and open like this. They should be nice and open like this. The wall of the bronchus is composed of a smooth muscle layer. Okay, it's composed of a smooth muscle layer. But what can happen is, due to this inflammation, these smooth muscles can contract. These smooth muscles can contract, and also they can start to produce secretions, right? They can start to produce secretion that can reduce the surface area, sorry, reduce the cross section, right? To reduce. So it's like trying to breathe through a small tube. Gala, you're going to get a sound. It's like a flute, Arnihang. When you have a wheeze, you have a sort of a musical sound, right? Gala, right? You get a sort of a musical note, right? That's because your airways have become narrow, okay, causing difficulty in breathing with a sound, right? That's the main, I mean, that's how you Taggala diagnose asthma. Bronchitis or bronchiolar inflammation, it's actually another type of infection of the bronchioles, right? It's another type of infection of the bronchioles. Heavy cough and difficulty breathing are the symptoms. Other than this, the infection can spread to the alveolus as well, or it can go upwards and the larynx can get infected as well. It can go up and the larynx can get infected as well. As a result, voice may not exit properly. Okay, bronchitis or bronchiolar inflammation. Okay, I'll show you some diagrams for all these. Okay, then tuberculosis. Okay, Abhi, what do you call tuberculosis in singular? What is the singular word for tuberculosis? It's called Shire-Rogan. If you translate it to English, it literally means the wasting disease. Right? The tuberculosis is caused by a bacteria. This bacteria can cause wasting of the body. People with tuberculosis can become very thin and frail, become very weak. Okay, it's caused by a bacteria, Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Right, bacteria. Due to the multiplication of the bacteria within the lungs, the tissues are damaged. Mainly the lungs are infected. So there are several types of tuberculosis. The type of tuberculosis affecting the lungs is the most common, right? Parts of tissue can be released with phlegm, right? So you can have blood coming out with your phlegm. Phlegm means what? You cough and come up with this mucus and also damage lung tissue. Okay, blood release with the phlegm is due to the breakdown of blood vessels. What are the symptoms? Mostly you can be tired, you can have weight loss, you can be weak, you can have a this this fever is like a low grade, but it remains for a long time. Tuberculosis fever is remain for a I mean it will remain for a long time, for 3 or several months, 3 weeks to 4 weeks, or several months. Okay, loss of appetite, you can't eat much, right? Your appetite goes down. That is going to cause again more weight loss, right? Loss of appetite is going to cause more weight loss, right? You are going to cough and get come blood will come out. Precautions and vaccines. I mean, there is no particular vaccine for TB, okay, right? But okay, vaccines to avoid tuberculosis can be cured by proper treatment. Yes, most importantly, there are antibiotics that are going to act against tuberculosis, right? So in Sri Lanka is very good in terms of controlling TB. We have a national tuberculosis control program that are testing people all the time to identify tuberculosis, right? Why do we cough blood when we get tuberculosis? Because the bacteria is actually damaging the lung tissue. So when the lung tissue is damaged, what's going to happen? The capillaries that are around the alveoli are going to come into sort of exposed to the outside because the alveolar wall is damaged. So then what's next going to happen? The capillary wall is going to get damaged and the blood is going to be released into your tube system. So when you cough, that blood is going to come. Okay. The bacteria actually live in the wall of the alveoli inside certain immune cells. Okay. So while the bacteria is living there, that immune cells are going to damage your alveoli. Then they are going to damage your blood capillaries. So blood is going to come out. Okay. Then we'll talk about some diseases that are caused due to smoking. Smoking can cause so many diseases that are, um, let's say, very avoidable. Smoking related diseases are very avoidable, right? Yes, what do you think? I want to show you some of these respiratory diseases. Um, Hold on. Right, I'll show you some of these lung cancer, right? So one of the most common causes, I mean, common problems associated with smoking is having lung cancers, right? So I'll show you some diagrams of lung cancer, right? Most in Sri Lanka, I mean, so worldwide, most of the cancers among males are due to lung, I mean, are lung cancers due to smoking, right? Most of the cancers worldwide, right? Worldwide, yes. Can you see? Um, of the all the cancers in the world diagnosed in 2018, lung cancers are the most common, right? Almost 12%. Then it's the breast cancer, then you are going to have colon cancer, then prostate cancer, like that. And then they have found out the commonest reason to get lung cancers is what? Smoking. Commonest reason to get lung cancers is smoking. Okay. So male to female ratio is 2.7, right? So almost more than twice, sometimes more than three times the females, males have lung cancers due to smoking. Okay. Mm. So cigarette smoke is what we call as a super carcinogen. A carcinogen is something that can cause cancer. Cigarette smoke is a super carcinogen, right? It contains so many things that can cause the start of a cancer. Okay. So if I show you, this is the progression of a cancer, right? This is the normal lung, very nice. Then it will become like this. This is a cancer, right? The cells are so crowded. You don't know what site of cells are. Cells are dividing abnormally, right? So none of these cells are useful. These are useless cells that are dividing, and they are not doing the proper respiratory system functions. So your respiratory system will fail. You will not get enough oxygen and you will die, right? That's what going to happen. So this is a lung cancer. Can you see here? You can see this is a sliced diagram of a lung, and you can see this is a lung cancer here, right? This is a CT scan. You can see there's a cancer here. Okay. You can see in X-rays. May X-ray can you see here? There's one here. There's a cancer here. There's a cancer here. You can see, right? If you become doctors, you will be need to diagnose this very quickly. Okay. This is also a cancer, right? This is the trachea. This is the left and right bronchi. You can see there's a cancer. Okay. These are also all lung cancers, right? This is a cross section of a lung. Can you see there are so many abnormal yellow color cells in the lung due to the growing lung cancer. Okay. So smoking is the main reason, is the leading reason for lung cancers worldwide. Okay. Any questions? Okay, I'll explain between silicosis and asbestosis as well. Okay, so we were talking about smoking, no? Right? Come to that. Um, Cigarette smoke, right? Cigarette smoke has so many bad things. One of the leading respiratory toxins is carbon monoxide, right? Carbon monoxide readily binds to what? Hemoglobin and prevents the binding of oxygen. Therefore, the oxygen carrying capacity of oxygen in blood reduces. Memita, imagine your hemoglobin as a lorry. There's a lorry like this, right? There's a lorry like this. So your lorry has a capacity. There's a sort of a truck bed. No? Your lorry has a truck bed like this. Imagine you fill it with sand, right? Sand, and you deliver that sand to some place, and then you can remove that sand by tippering it out. No, tipper karna ke liye you can tip the sand out. So that is like oxygen delivery, right? So when you get a you load oxygen into the lorry, which is the hemoglobin, then you take this oxygen to the cells, and then you deliver the oxygen, right? It's like sand. You can load sand, you can unload sand, no problem. So what what's going to happen when you put carbon carbon monoxide? If you put carbon monoxide to hemoglobin, that is like putting concrete on this lorry, right? It's like putting concrete onto this lorry, right? What's going to happen if you put concrete and allow it to get solid? You are going to wait till the concrete becomes solid. What's going to happen? Can you remove that concrete? No, right? The lorry is going to be useless, right? The entire lorry is going to be useless now because it is filled with what? Hard concrete. So it's like that. If you let carbon monoxide bind with hemoglobin, that carbon monoxide you can't remove it. Okay, that carbon monoxide is going to be completely, I mean, permanently bonded to the hemoglobin. So that is going to reduce the amount of hemoglobin available to transport oxygen. That is why carbon monoxide is very bad. Okay. Then there's an addictive drug. There's an addictive drug in your cigarette smoke that is called nicotine. Because it is because of the nicotine that people smoke again and again. Right? People know that smoking is bad. People understand that smoking is bad. But why do they keep on smoking? Because of this nicotine. It's very addictive. It can give you a boost of energy. It can make your heart rate fast. It can sometimes clear the mind. Right? That's why people keep on smoking again and again. And you will understand when you come to A levels, there are so many other uh, toxic things in the cigarette smoke. Particularly, there is things called hydrogen sulfide. Those kind of things can damage the cilia. Can you remember the cilia in the respiratory system? Right? The cilia can damage and can become inflamed. So it can cause difficulty in breathing. And also, what's going to happen is these cilia are the people that are involved in cleaning the respiratory system. So when the cilia are destroyed, the all the bacteria, dust, and whatever the things that you are breathing in are going to be collected in the lung. So you are going to get lung infections very commonly as well. Then, because of the cigarette smoke chemicals, they can produce abnormal cells which can develop into cancers. Lung carcinoma, lung cancer. What do you mean by a passive smoker? Passive smoker is someone who is very close to or living very close to someone who is smoking, right? Regularly, if you are in close contact with a person who is smoking, you can get the same effects. but not to that I mean එච්චර seriously in a way, but you can, it increases the risk of you developing these problems. Yet silicosis and asbestosis, we call them as workplace associated, right? Depending on the work they do, right? People who work in quarries, coal mines, and glass industry, you know, silica, no? Right? Silica is found in usually sand, right? What's going to happen in this silicosis is the silica is going to go into the alveoli because they are very small. You breathe in the silica and they go into your alveoli. So what's going to happen is, if this is your alveolus, මෙහෙමනේ alveolus එක තියෙන්නේ, right? Okay, this is your alveolus. This is a silica particle, right? Red color silica particle is here. This silica particle, what's going to happen is there are immune cells that are in this alveoli, immune cells. Okay, immune cells that are in this alveoli that are there for the protection of the alveoli. So those immune cells are going to come here. They are going to eat this silica. They are going to eat this silica, but they can't break down that silica. Why is that? Because the silica is like a mineral. Right? They can't break down that silica. So more and more those kind of immune cells are getting collected, and those kind of immune cells are, when they are getting collected, they can damage this alveolus. They damage this alveolus. So it's like silica නිකන් හරියට නිකන් it's like a අර it's like an irritant. The silica itself is not the damage. Your body's response to the silica is the damage. Your body is trying to remove that silica. Silica වයින් කරන්න try කරන හින්දා your lungs are going to get damaged. Okay, this is silicosis. Asbestosis is also very similar. It's actually very similar. Silica is like this, no, but asbestos has sort of this sort of fibers. Asbestos bigger fibers there. Okay, asbestos fibers are also going to go into your alveoli. Okay, asbestos are also going to go into your alveoli, and they can produce a similar effect, right? They can produce tissues of the respiratory tract to be destroyed, and that can reduce the what? They can reduce the respiratory surface area එක අඩු වෙනවා. That's what going to happen in silicosis and asbestosis. Any questions? Right. Let's do one more biosphere question and we'll finish for the day. Okay, let's do one more biosphere question and we will finish our seminar series. Okay, because I there's also a tissue question that we can do, but I think biosphere. I think you are very afraid of biosphere. The biosphere එකට බයයි නේද? Why are you afraid of biosphere? That is it. Hold on. Oh, this one. Yes. Okay. We'll do completely discuss these two questions. Right. Taggala Kanba. Right. This is 2020 paper. Okay. Then we'll finish for the day. Okay. Okay. Let's quickly finish this. A pollutant source, මොනවද මෙතන අහන්නේ? Right. What are the things you can see in this diagram? Okay. Secondary pollutants produced from primary pollutants and the gaseous pollutants produced by them. Okay. Okay. So primary pollutants that will be converted to secondary pollutants are given. Pollutant source producing primary pollutants without human interference. So what is the only place that you can see naturally you can have a pollutant produced? Bus factories, eutrophied water bodies, cultivated land, all those have human interference. Your volcano is the only place without any human interference. Okay. I can't. I can't again. Okay. Something. Okay. Right. Secondary pollutant affecting living beings favorably in the upper regions of the atmosphere and unfavorably in the lower regions. Okay. Right. That's a bit interesting. උඩ තියෙනකොට හොඳයි යට තියෙනකොට වැරදි කවුද? Yes. Ozone. Ozone is very good as long as it remains in the ozone layer. But if ozone comes down to our atmospheric level, it can be very reactive. If ozone comes down to our normal level, it can be very reactive. So ozone is the answer. Primary pollutant producing secondary pollutants which contribute to acid rains. You can have two options. nitrogen dioxide or sulfur dioxide, both can lead to acid rains. Okay. A primary pollutant with basic properties that liberate from eutrophied water bodies. Eutrophied water bodies, really? Ammonia, no? NH3. NH3, it's a basic gas. Right. Secondary pollutant which that falls on soil and contributes to provide a main nutrient. A pollutant that falls on the soil. Hmm. A pollutant that falls on the soil and contributes to provide a main nutrient. That's is it NO2? So nitrate is the main thing, right? But nitrates, no, but nitrates are not given, and we already took ammonia. Let's leave it. If the food mileage is shortened, the amount of gaseous pollutant released from this pollutant source is reduced. If the food mileage is reduced, what is the best way to reduce food mileage? That the distance food travels? Maritime vessels, no? Maritime vessels. Maritime vessels are the main ways that you transport food materials, right? If this mode of transport is selected, your carbon footprint during an inland tour can be minimized. What do you mean by the carbon footprint? There is the amount of carbon that is produced by a person, right? An individual. So if you take a bus as a, if your whole team takes a bus instead of individual cars, if you take one big bus, then that has only one engine, no? So yes, it has a bigger engine, but altogether more cars, I mean, individual cars are going to produce more carbon dioxide. So if you take a bus, that is going to reduce the carbon footprint. Okay. Okay. In a populated city, the atmospheric nitrogen gas composition was measured during the day, starting from Sunday midnight to Monday midnight. The variation of NO2 using those data is given below. Answer the following questions based on the graph. Right. What is the maximum and minimum oxygen composition based? Right. These are simple things. No? So composition given in parts per million. What is the minimum? Yes. 0.01. What is the maximum? 0.03. Right. Which hour of the day is maximum? You may lazy, right? Which hour is the day? Right. 8. Right. I think no need to. Okay. According to the above graph, two occasions are seen in the high in a day. When do you have high nitrogen dioxide gases? What are the reasons for high nitrogen dioxide? Right. Two occasions in the above city. What are the why is nitrogen dioxide gas produced? Because of the combustion or the reaction of nitrogen gas with oxygen, right? So it can happen in motor car engines. Why? And also there's a sort of a factory here, right? Yes, factories. So what are the two times that they can increase? You can say during the time of the traffic jams, where you have the large amount of traffic. There is one place. And also when the factories are working, so you can say the working hours of the factories. In those times also you can get high nitrogen dioxide gas. Okay. Increase in NO2 is in the forenoon is greater than in the afternoon. What is the reason? You can say in the mornings the traffic jam is greater or something like that. ඒ වගේ එකක් තමයි ලියන්න වෙන්නේ, right? Name another primary gaseous pollutant that would indicate a variation that corresponds to the variation in NO2. You can say carbon dioxide, right? You can say carbon dioxide because why? Carbon dioxide is also associated with combustion, no? Very commonly associated with combustion. Okay, right. Then what about this question? Okay, incomplete table. So they are asking organelle and function, organelle and function. Nucleus, what is the organelle? Control functions of the cell, control metabolic activities, storage of genetic information. Okay, and Coulomb. Then mitochondrion is the answer, no? Providing energy required for metabolic activities. That is mitochondria. Golgi, production, packaging, and distribution of secretory substances. Then protein transport is done by who? Who is the main organelle doing protein transport? Golgi, no? Golgi apparatus. Lightning. What do you mean lightning for two occasions? Yes, but it's I mean it's not a regular, right? Lightning is a small sort of few incidents, no? Right? You can't say lightning is a occasion, right? You're talking about an occasion, right? I think that sort of traffic jams or working hours of the factory are the best answers. No? Protein transport is by rough endoplasmic reticulum. Okay, rough endoplasmic reticulum. All right. In the plant tissues. Okay. Permanent tissues. Okay. I'll quickly go to my tute. Right. Quickly go to my uh, tissues tute. How do you classify plant tissues? Yes. How do you classify plant tissues? Taggalakia. How do you classify plant tissues? Yes. How do you classify? Yes, you have meristematic tissues and you have permanent tissues. Then meristematic are of three types, right? You can see. So I have given you some diagrams. Meristematic tissues are of three types. You can see uh, here. You can see the two types of apical meristems. This is the root apical meristem. This is a shoot apical meristem, which is on the top of the plant, making the plant become tall, right? Shoot apical meristem and the root apical meristem. So I want you to do a comparison between apical. What do you mean by the lateral meristems? Lateral meristems you can see here, right? Your cambium tissues, they make the plant become white. Mahat වෙනවානේ පළල් වෙනවා. Okay, so they become the plant become white. Okay, then if we come to permanent intercalary meristems, you can see in some certain grasses, right? They make the length of the internode. Have you seen in this bamboo? You can see the internode, right, Arabic? You used to make Vesak lanterns, right? That is the internode. Intercalary meristems make that bigger. Here you have the simple permanent. So permanent tissues are of two types, as simple permanent and yes, complex permanent. So simple permanent you have three types. As parenchyma, you can see the spherical cells nicely, right? Bola wage cells with having intercellular spaces. They have spaces in between cells. You can see collenchyma that are polygonal, right? For the boxes wage. Right? They have thickened cell walls. Their cell walls are thicker than parenchyma. Then you have sclerenchyma, which are actually dead cells, right? You can see very thick cell layers, sorry, primary cell walls. Okay, so those are the simple permanent tissues. Then you come to complex tissues that are actually your vascular tissues. This is a xylem, this is a phloem, right? So you can see the diagrams. Okay, right? Coming back to our question, what are they asking? Plant tissues are of two types as permanent tissues and meristematic. Sorry, permanent tissues. Yes, permanent tissues and meristematic. So A is meristematic, right? So simple permanent and complex permanent. Simple permanent, parenchyma, collenchyma, sclerenchyma. Then complex permanent, you have xylem and phloem. What is the type of tissue in which photosynthesis occurs most? What is the most cell mostly doing photosynthesis? Always remember your parenchyma are like the most metabolically active, the most metabolically active type of cell. Okay, parenchyma cells. So parenchyma is where you have photosynthesis. Type of cell tissue that contains CO tube elements. CO tubes are found in phloem, right? Xylem vessel elements are found in xylem. CO tube elements are found in phloem tissue. Right? Quickly do this. I'll give you 1 minute. Right? Okay, right. Very easy experiment question given here. The product of photosynthesis. What do you get at the end of photosynthesis? Oxygen gas and glucose. නේද? ඔය දෙකනේ හම්බෙන්නේ. So you can see it's a gas නම් there is definitely oxygen, right? So if you put an aquatic plant in sunlight, you are going to get gas bubbles here. Okay, right. State a test that can be done to identify that the gas and the observation you make. How do you confirm it is oxygen? You insert a glowing splinter, right? A glowing. Again, it's not a burning. It's like a burn vela. Still, it's red color. If you insert it there, it will relight. You can say it will reignite. It will burn with a bright flame. So you have to insert a glowing splinter, glowing splinter. Okay, because oxygen is going to facilitate burning. Oxygen is going to facilitate the burning action, right? Okay. Then a new apparatus similar to above apparatus was made with putting water saturated with carbon dioxide with instead of normal water. State an observation. Right. So they are saying we are putting water with high amount of carbon dioxide. When you put high amount of carbon dioxide, what's going to happen? Photosynthesis needs carbon dioxide. No, photosynthesis absorbs carbon dioxide. So when you give high concentration of carbon dioxide, right, the speed of evolution of gas bubbles is going to increase because why? You have given high concentration of carbon dioxide. So photosynthesis is going to happen very fast. Okay. Then give reasons for the observation. The rate of photosynthesis increases. You can say the rate of photosynthesis increases with the increase in the carbon dioxide concentration. These are the answers. Yes, rate is increased. Okay. Okay. People who are going to watch the recording as well as people who are still online, that brings us to the end of our seminar series. Okay. I hope you got something. I mean, I hope you improved a little bit. I hope you got some sort of additional knowledge, some sort of additional help from uh, joining this seminar series. All right. So we have done questions. We covered a lot of parts in the syllabus. Okay. So we have done a lot of work within just 3 sessions. Right. So I hope you got something beneficial, and I wish you all the best for your exam. And your preparation would be enough. So keep working in the few days remaining as well. Right. Gather whatever knowledge you can. Right. Anywhere you want. I mean, from any source, from the internet or whatever, other teachers or anyone, and go face the exam. That knowledge, or let's say this training that you get in O levels, is going to be very, very important when you come to the competitive exam of A levels, right? Your O levels is it's a level that you have to pass, right? But A levels is a competition, right? You have to be better than the other person. I'm not saying to scare you, but it's the reality, yeah, right? So you have to get a higher EZ score than the other person. You have to get a higher score than the other person, right? So that's the reality. So O levels is just a training for your A levels. So hope to see you in A level classes. Hope to see you getting nice results, right? So I will be active in the group after your O levels are done, right? So let me know how the science or the biology parts of the science paper goes. Okay. So wish you all the best. Okay. Then we'll finish our sessions. Okay. That's all I want to hear. Okay. Right. People who will watch recordings, I hope if you came to the end of this recording, that means you have watched, right? Then complete recording. That's good. Okay. So okay. See you at A levels. Hopefully doing biology. Okay. Right. Thank you.